He walked in just looking for a meal. Nothing fancy, just a quiet corner, a plate of food, and a few minutes to rest after a long day. But before he even had a chance to sit down, someone stopped him. A waiter glanced at him, then looked past like he didn't exist. Moments later, the manager walked over, stiff smile and all. "Sorry, we're fully booked," he said, even though half the tables sat empty. The message was clear: he wasn't welcome. He looked around, nodded slowly, and walked out without a word. But he wasn't angry. He was thinking. That night, he didn't go home. He made some calls, quiet ones. The kind of calls that people only make when they know exactly what they're doing. Because what the restaurant didn't know was who he really was. Not just some tired guy in jeans and a hoodie. He was an investor, a self-made entrepreneur with a history of turning rejection into opportunity. And this time, it was personal. What happened next wasn't planned out of spite. It was calculated, strategic, and faster than anyone saw coming. Within hours, the deal was moving. And by sunrise, the restaurant had a new owner. But owning the place was only the beginning. The real story. What he did with it, and how he turned one moment of quiet disrespect into something unforgettable. And trust me, the people who refused to serve him, they never saw it coming. He hadn't always looked the part of success. Years ago, he was the one bussing tables, working long shifts in the back kitchen, saving tip money in a worn-out jar. He knew what it felt like to be ignored, to have people look right through him like he didn't matter. But he also knew how to pay attention to how restaurants ran, what made customers come back, and most importantly, how owners made the real money behind the scenes. While his friends spent weekends out, he was watching restaurant owners, learning how the industry worked from the inside out. After years of grinding, starting a few businesses, and surviving more losses than he could count, things finally shifted. One online startup took off, then another. He never flaunted it. No flashy cars, no designer suits. Just kept his head down and kept building. That night when they turned him away, they didn't recognize him. But he recognized the attitude. It wasn't about a full restaurant. It was about status, who they *fought* deserved to be served and who didn't. As he sat in his car that night, phone glowing, he called a broker he trusted. "I need to know who owns this place," he said. Within hours, the facts were on his screen. The restaurant was privately owned, but barely holding on, behind on taxes, overdue bills, and staff complaints stacking up. It wasn't just an insult anymore. It was an opportunity, and the clock was already ticking. By the next morning, he had already spoken to the landlord. Turns out, the restaurant was behind on 3 months of rent. The lease was weak, no protections, no backup plan. He didn't need to buy the business. All he had to do was buy the building. And that's exactly what he planned to do. But this wasn't just about flipping property or proving a point. He wanted to send a message, one that didn't come with shouting or revenge, but with action and ownership. Behind the kitchen doors, the staff was stressed. Word had started to spread that the place might be shutting down. The manager who turned him away didn't know any of this. He was still running the floor like nothing was wrong, still picking who got service and who didn't. But the servers noticed the change. Fewer customers were coming in. Suppliers weren't delivering on time. Morale was low, tips were worse. No one knew what was really going on, but everyone felt the shift. At the same time, he was reaching out to a former mentor, someone who once helped him get his first loan. "You ever wanted to fix a place from the inside out?" he asked. Together, they started mapping a new plan, not just to buy the space, but to transform it. Not with overpriced menus and dress codes, but with real food, fair pay, and open doors. But he wasn't celebrating yet. The deal wasn't done, and the people inside still didn't see what was coming. The deal was moving fast, too fast for most people to notice. In just a few days, the building owner had accepted the offer. The paperwork was being reviewed, and a quiet closing date was set, but the restaurant still had no idea. To them, business went on as usual, but the pressure was mounting. Customers were thinning out, the kitchen was understaffed, and even the regulars were starting to question the service. Tension hung in the air like smoke. He kept showing up, sitting at a different table outside each time. Watching, listening, not out of ego, but strategy. He wanted to understand what the place could become, what needed fixing and what needed protecting. A young dishwasher caught his attention one afternoon. Barely 18, working double shifts, polite to everyone, invisible to the people in charge. He saw himself in that kid. That was the real reason he was doing all this. But there was one complication. Word was getting around to the manager. Someone tipped him off that a buyer was circling. He started digging, asking questions, growing suspicious of the man who kept showing up but never ate. One night, after hours, he confronted him in the parking lot. "You trying to play games here?" he asked, tone sharp. The silence between them felt heavy. And that's when he knew. The manager was nervous. What he didn't know was that time had already run out. The final papers were being signed in the morning. And the keys, they were already in his pocket. That night, as he sat in his car holding the keys, a new complication hit him out of nowhere. His lawyer called, quiet voice, straight to the point. "There's been a last-minute counteroffer. Higher. Cash. Someone's trying to outbid you for the building. You didn't even have to guess who it was. The manager." Somehow, he had scraped together investors, likely calling in favors, trying to block the sale and keep control of the place. What was once a quiet transaction had now become a power play. It wasn't about a restaurant anymore. It was pride, image, and control. The manager had gotten wind of who he really was, and that made him even more dangerous. He wasn't just trying to keep his job. He wanted to make sure this man never had a say in what happened inside those walls. If the deal fell through, the whole vision, open doors, fair pay, second chances, would collapse with it. Tension peaked. The seller, tempted by the cash offer, called for a final decision by morning. He had one night to match the offer or walk away. But matching it would mean risking more than he planned, more capital, more leverage, more exposure. His mentor advised caution. "Are you sure this is worth it?" he asked. He looked back at the restaurant, still lit inside, staff cleaning up quietly. The dishwasher wiped down tables with tired hands. He didn't answer the question. He already knew. But he also knew this was about to get messy. At sunrise, he walked into the seller's office, silent and steady. The room was tense. Papers on the desk. 2 offers side by side. One cash, one clean. He didn't try to argue or pitch. Instead, he slid a sealed envelope across the table, his final offer. It wasn't just money. Inside was a full renovation plan, job protections for staff, and a signed letter from a community food program he planned to partner with. It wasn't the highest bid, but it showed vision, stability, and heart. The seller took a long pause. "You're not just buying a building," he said, tapping the envelope. "You're fixing something." He signed the contract. Just like that, it was done. News traveled fast. By lunch, the manager had already cleared out his office. No fight, no speech. Just disappeared. Staff was stunned. Most had no idea what was happening until the new owner walked through the kitchen, casual, focused, and finally ready. He gathered everyone, thanked them for sticking through the rough days, and promised changes that would start immediately. But as the dust settled, one final twist surfaced. The dishwasher, the quiet kid who never spoke much, walked up after the meeting and handed him a folded resume. "I've been studying restaurant management online," he said. Turns out he'd been watching too, learning behind the scenes. He smiled and nodded. "Come in early tomorrow," he said. "Let's talk about your future." The restaurant didn't just get a new owner. It got a new story, and it was just beginning. Weeks passed, and the change was impossible to ignore. The restaurant reopened under a new name, simpler, more welcoming. The menu was redesigned to focus on comfort food at fair prices, the kind that brought in families, locals, and people who'd never felt welcome there before. Word spread quickly. Not just about the food, but the story behind it. People came not only to eat, but to be part of something bigger. A business built on respect, not rejection. The old staff stayed, and some who had left came back. The dishwasher, now assistant manager, stepped into his role with quiet confidence. He had ideas of his own, and the owner listened. That was the difference now. Everyone had a voice. The kitchen ran smoother, the customers kept returning, and slowly, the place turned into more than a restaurant. It became a symbol of what could happen when someone refused to accept a closed door and chose instead to own the whole building. Looking back, he never forgot that moment when they refused to serve him, but he didn't hold on to the bitterness. Instead, he built something that welcomed the very people who might have once looked past him. It wasn't about revenge, it was about rewriting the rules. Success, in the end, wasn't just about owning the restaurant, it was about what he did with it. And for everyone who'd ever been told you don't belong here at this place, now had a seat waiting for them.